welcome everybody to this quarterly Customer Connect event. We're going to be covering our scheduled test section, specifically Iperf and speed tests, some of the improvements we've made recently, and how you can benefit from that in your environments. And for those of you that I've not met with in a while, my name is Stevie, and I'm a customer success engineer here at NetBeez. So, quick agenda overview. We're going to have 3 really quick slides. We're just going to talk about the use cases for scheduled testing. There will be a slide talking about what's new, but I'm actually just putting in there for slide purposes. I'm actually going to show you that. And then we're going to do some quick demos. One of them is going to be configuring, I'll do that first, the Iperf server. That's something a lot of people have asked about, what's the best way of doing it? How do you recommend it? So I built out a process and I want to show you guys today that. And then just configuring Iperf and speed tests with some of the new changes we've recently rolled out. So first things first, with 3 use cases. The first one is reporting metrics. So here I have a couple screenshots of speed test. I have 4 graphs/charts total. The first one is the first chart you'll see, and that's going to be that's going to list all of your agents. It's going to give all your aggregated averages. So if this is like a daily report, it's going to pull the average of each agent's collective total speed test average over that day. So if it's only 1, it's just 1 run. If it was 5 runs, it's an average over those 5, as well as how many tests were run, if there's any errors or performance issues that you set alerts for. And then the chart's completely sortable by pretty much every single column, except I think test, because it's all the same. Then you have the scatter plot graph. So that's the sec one right here. This is really, really good, especially at scale. When we talk about remote agent deployment, for example, or if you have a lot of remote offices, we're talking dozens or hundreds or thousands. That's where the scatter plot's really, really useful, because you can see trend lines. It's easy to quickly look at, a bunch of them that are at the bottom and cursor over the little bubbles. You can change the bubble color to sort by latency or by ISP. Really good for bulk data. The line graph will only populate if there's 10 agents or less in this report. That's just because once we hit above 10, what happens is when you cursor over one of these, it'll pull out a mini legend, and that scaling is just very limited. So this will only show at 10 or less. So this is definitely good for smaller reporting, whereas the scatter plot's always going to show, and that's good for really large reporting. And then this bottom graph is going to be ISP quality. So what we're going to do is we're going to break down all the detectable ISPs and then take all the tests run on that ISP and average it out and say, this is how well ISP A is looking against ISP B, C, and D in this case. And we kind of give some like good, better, best, and not so great metrics over here. I think that's based off of just arbitrary numbers we have set within the dashboard to give that. Now, here is basically a new feature came out in 14.1 earlier this year. We've reiterated on it and added more to it to make it fully fleshed out now. And that is your scheduled test alerting. So here's an example. I got an email saying my scheduled test performance is an issue. And it even tells you here, what was the destination, what was the device, what was the issue. So was it didn't work, or was it performance, the test, the time and date, and then what the alert says. So in this case, I have a metric that says if it's under 500 or under 15 megabits per second upload, thank you Comcast for that one, by the way, to alert me. So in this case, it came back as 449.1 on the laptop, so it sent out an alert. So you have a bunch of different metrics. So for speed test, you have upload, download, latency. Iperf, you have bandwidth, jitter, and latency as well. And the alerts work in 2 ways. One is failure to start if the agent is reachable. That is very important to note, especially when you look at remote agent deployments, or if you have agents that float around, for example. You don't want to get failures because that agent isn't reachable for any reason. So it's only if the agent's reporting to the dashboard is active and fails to start the test. And then the other option is the throughput thresholds, which is what I have set here, which is why I got the alert. And lastly is troubleshooting. This is something that I think almost all of our customers use in some capacity. NetBeez is a pretty good troubleshooting tool to get some data, collect data, get real-time data, etc. when we look at scheduled testing, the two areas we look at are ad hoc, and we look at what I call the run now feature. Well, that's what it's called. There's a button for it. The ad hoc feature is great because if you're getting some results, whether it's a ping test or an Iperf or network speed or anything like that, you don't have to go in and change variables and stuff like that. You can go to ad hoc and you can set a source and a destination for like Iperf, for example. We can do like agent to agent Iperfs like an option too. And you can test, okay, maybe I want to run it longer. Maybe I want to pull results every 2 seconds instead of one. Maybe I want to just, okay, let me set the bandwidth at half a gig. Can we guarantee we have half a gig right now? Do we need to set the TCP window size differently, right? Do we need to enforce a specific one? So it really allows you to just set on-the-go parameters, get real-time feedback. Here's the downside. This is not stored or saved anywhere in a dashboard. Once you close out of your session, this is going to disappear. So that is the limitation of the ad hoc testing. This is where the run now feature becomes more useful when we look at the speed test and Iperf, is it takes your existing settings and just runs the test now. It logs it both in the user interface under the test section. It shows up in the reports as part of the averages. It shows up under each agent that's in that particular test and its reporting data as well. So a good example why this would be useful. You have somebody opens a ticket saying, hey, or they're complaining, open ticket's probably not the right word in many cases. They're complaining that bandwidth or they have slow load times during lunch for whatever reason. Maybe they take a later lunch. So maybe before you go to lunch, you run now and come back and see what it reports. It'll show up in the reporting. You can go back and look at it later. Maybe you do that maybe 2 days in a row and maybe look at them both, pull a report for that time period, et cetera. So there's definitely a lot of reasons to do that, especially if you want to keep that data and put it into your statistics and metrics as well. So this is where I'm going to break off from the actual slideshow portion. I do have screenshots in case you just share this as like a TLDR if you don't want to share the whole webinar of some of the new features. So we're going to jump into the dashboard here, and let me move faces out of the way. The anomaly detection feature or section just got a update, and that is to include our scheduled test alert. So this used to be in a different part. I think it was under the scheduled test section under each scheduled test originally, and now we've moved it here. So you have three options. You have scheduled test error, and it's going to be for the three scheduled tests. And this is simply, does the agent run a test or not if it's available? Very simple. You can do with one of the last two, not really, usually 1/1 or like 2/4. Usually it's if you want to maybe just know that if you have an ongoing issue. Um, then we have performance baseline. This one's a little tricky because it's really to dial in like very set metrics based off of multiplicative numbers. So let's just say if over the last 15 runs, so if you run 15 speed tests a week, 3 a day, is less than 2 times what that 15 run average is. That can definitely work if you have a wide range of expected performances. You just want to detect, degradation of performance. Usually, though, we're seeing strict SLAs, especially with like remote workers. I see this applied. So you could do like download is less than, and we can do also upload is less than, and we can do either or. You can do both. And I have a customer, I think it's like 25/10 or something of that nature kind of rings a bell, where people working remotely have to maintain this. So you set this kind of metric and apply it to your daily or hourly, however often you run speed tests. And then maybe it's just like, okay, we just need to make sure their average is that high, or if you have a strict rule below a certain level. So that's where that is going to apply. And then if you go under notification section, this is where you can add your scheduled test alerts. For me, I just have email. You can do Slack, you can do Teams, PagerDuty, etc. Once you enable those, you go to notification settings, you just check mark it off and hit save, you're good to go. And then lastly here, if we're going to add a test, I want to show you guys this. So some of you who I've met with, you may have seen this already, but we're kind of just going to show it to you guys again real quick. We've added some run options. So parallel was the old way, just fire everything at once. definitely had some shortcomings with that, right? So, particularly with Iperf in particular, you're going to end up potentially flooding the bandwidth. So, depending on how much bandwidth you have available, you may not get accurate results if you are running like 20 agents and you only have a 10 gig, um, 10 gig uplink at that location. You're probably going to get around 500 meg at best, and that's not going to be realistic. Um, the other issue we ran into is like if you're going to run remote agent test over over a full tunnel VPN, you're going to saturate that connection and also not get realistic results. So that's where serialized and randomized come into play. So serialized is just run one after another. Very useful main deployments. Where you might see issues with this is if you're running an hourly speed test or probably north of 30 agents, you might end up having the last few not run. Um, so just keep that in mind. Think about how many agents you have in the intervals in the time frame you want them to run. That's where randomized comes in at, where you get to set the window and also, the time period of when it starts. So say you have 100 remote agents and you run an hourly speed test. This will prevent more than probably two overlapping, maybe three overlapping at a time, somewhere in that ballpark, 2 to 3 at most, but be able to get it done within that hour period. So these really allow you to expand your testing out much further than before. It also helps you shrink the amount of tests, particularly Iperf, which again, we're really going to go into in a minute, where, previously, if I go here and add test, for example, you would do like, okay, your destination, maybe you just put like one agent in a data center in AWS US East and one in US West. We'll just use that as an example. If you do many, you can't do many to one on an agent. You can do many one to a server, but what you ran into there, again, not enough resource on the server, saturating bandwidth, not getting real results. But what this will allow you to do is no more a bunch of one-to-ones. I have several customers that had to do that, where they did like all of their US East agents did a one-to-one, and they had to stagger them, during different time periods and stuff like that. And it wasn't really ideal. So the fix to that was this. And then once we added serialized and randomized, then this became a lot more applicable. You don't have to worry about having a really beefy iPerf server to be able to handle that. So with that done, let's go ahead and talk about setting up an iPerf server. So we're going to SSH to my server just deployed an hour ago. So let's see if this wants to work for me. So we're going to log in as sudo just to be safe. And I'm going to split screen this a bit so you guys can see. And in the presentation here, I have a link to this community page. This is my guide that I wrote. It's step by step. It is designed for people who have very limited knowledge with Ubuntu. My understanding of Ubuntu is very limited when I joined NetBeez, and to be honest, it's still not very extensive. But this guide is designed for somebody who basically can, a little bit of technical knowledge and can follow, just a basic step-by-step guide. So hopefully this works out for everybody. So first things first, we just go over kind of the reasoning, the prerequisite, you have to have Ubuntu. Other distros should work, but I haven't tested them, and the process might be a little different. I know my Unraid server runs on Slackware, and in particular, things like in step 4 don't work because this function works differently with Slackware. So that's one thing I'd found out, for example. But here I have a link, and this link will send you to the distro. It's going to be 20.04 server, 20.04.6. And then this guide, while it is used to deploy an on-premise server, it does give you a step-by-step guide for how we recommend to install Ubuntu. So download the image, deploy it in whatever virtual infrastructure you want, and basically a step-by-step. Don't update it. Basically skip to you set a static IP. You can skip storage. Basically skip to you set up SSH. Install OpenSSH and basically reboot. Very simple. It's a lot of next done. So once you're done there, that is when we're going to SSH the server and log in as sudo. So we've done that, and we're going to run our update. And then I'm going to grab this, which will install our Iperf 3 services. Oops. Try that again. copy. There we go. And it's going to ask me if I want to install. Yes, good to go. I got to move this out of the way again because it's in the way. And then we're just going to verify that this is running. So we're going to throw this in there. Copy, please. Thank you. There we go. And we're going to get a very generic output. It's not going to be identical, but it's just kind of a way that, Iperf is running. So if it's something of this nature, you are good to go. And then we're actually going to run the Iperf service. So now it's listening on port 5201. So now I'm going to jump back over to here, and we're going to select these agents. And we're going to run this to my Iperf server. Do note, we are running Iperf version 3, so we have to run that or it's not going to work. We want to do this ad hoc. There we go. So we're going to do my desktop and to this Iperf server version 3, leave everything else the same, and let's go ahead and run it. It's going to take, I run here 10 to 15 seconds. I have found that probably closer to 20 to 30. So while that's waiting to run, we'll see some output here, and then we'll also see some output on the server. Here was the thing I really had to figure out, which was, okay, it's listening. What if you cancel out? What if you reboot? What if you update? What if you lose power? What do you do if all this happens? You have to go in and rerun it. Well, who has time for that, right? You guys are all very busy. So that's not really going to be ideal. So what I did some research and worked with the team and said, okay, how can we now make this just work all the time? So what we found out is, well, that's pretty straightforward. All you have to do is cancel out and use your favorite text editor. Mine happens to be Vim. And we're just going to drop this. This will basically make sure it starts on reboot every time. We will go ahead and drop this in. Oh, I didn't actually copy and paste it correctly. There we go. There we go. And then we'll get out of here. And then we will apply this here. Don't really need sudo, but should be fine. And bam. And then from here, I'm going to go ahead and reboot and retest just to make sure it works. That is the key here. So we'll hit restart session in a few minutes, give it time. So moving past, we'll come back, but I'll just kind of give you guys a quick overview. Now we're going to actually set up real alerts. We're actually going to configure the task, set up reports, notifications, all that fun stuff. It's going to be what's kind of next. But now this is spun up. This should work. Even if you lose power comes back, it should come right back up. So let's go ahead and restart the session and see if we are back yet. There we go. Well, it is asking me to log in, but I'll start a separate session here. All right, so we're good to go. So we're going to go ahead and just run it again, just for good measure. We'll come back in a minute, but in the meantime, I'm going to go back full screen here, and we're going to go ahead and make a couple things here. So I showed you guys earlier. I'm going to do a watermark test, and we should probably be able to hit at least 400 megabits per second on my wireless. So we're going to do that. So we're going to do remote worker Iperf test. Yep. We'll click save. Perfect. It came back good. So we can actually build out the test now. So we're going to do multiple to one. These guys, put an IP address in my server. Version 3, remember that? We're going to do every day. We'll do 4. And then we're going to do this. So we don't want to do both of these. We just want to do remote worker. And we'll call this worker Iperf. And serialize is fine. Serialize or randomize will work fine for 3. It's no big deal. So we'll create that, and then we'll click run now. So far we have gone through making the alerts. We've configured the test. We added the alert profile. We already have notifications set up here. So that part I had already done earlier. So all we're waiting for is this come back. So in the meantime, we'll do a quick speed test. We'll do it for the remote worker agents. So we'll do those. NDT is fine. We'll do every day at 4. We'll do it at 4:30 in the morning. And then serialize. And then, oh, we forgot to make something. So let's actually go back here. I knew I forgot something. Watermark. And then we will go download is less than 400. And we'll do uploads less than 15. Call this remote worker speed test. Save. Perfect. And then we can add it here. Serialize is fine. Day, I think we decide what, 4:30? Yeah. We don't want it to run the same time as the Iperf daily. And we'll create that. So now that's done. That's basically how you do it. Very simple. Now we have these two. If I dropped out a little bit during this, that's because we were running the Iperf test. So you can see the results here. Got 663 and a 947 or 945 rather. So this is what the Iperf is going to look like more or less. So you're going to have your bar graph for all of your agents. Now, if you had run like UDP where you're going to get other metrics as well, you could turn this into a scatter plot as well. And then you'll have a line graph if you have, 10 or less. And then lastly, for reports, this is the last thing you probably want to make. You go to your scheduled test. I'd recommend doing it based off of usually the test, not the agent. But if you're looking at a specific agent, definitely understand that. And then you can do like, okay, we'll have this come out once a week, Mondays at 9 a.m. We can call this weekly Iperf. Fire in your email, and boom, you'll get weekly reports just like I showed you earlier. It'll come right to your email with a link. You can send it to everybody. You can send it to a distro list. They don't even need access to NetBeez. The only feature you need enabled is this one here under users and under public reporting. So if this is enabled, anybody at the link can view it without NetBeez access, which is really cool. But like the report just shows the report, doesn't show any of the top stuff, which is nice. So but that is pretty much it. We did report sections, so now I'll kind of turn over you guys for a quick Q&A. If you guys have any questions about, setting up Iperf server, what you can get out of it, etc., feel free to come off mute and let me know.